The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Sadyr Zhaparov, President of the Kyrgyz Republic. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Mr. Secretary General, Mr. President, distinguished heads of delegations, ladies and gentlemen, I extend my congratulations to the African nations and the esteemed Mr. Philemon Yang on being elected as the President of 79th session of the UN General Assembly. I wish you success in the important and assure you that Kyrgyzstan will provide full support to your presidency in the interests of peace and sustainable development. I also express my gratitude to the esteemed Mr. Denis Francis for his active work as President of the 78th session. On behalf of the Kyrgyz Republic, I reaffirm our commitment to international law, the principles and provisions of the UN Charter, and express our full support for the organization's efforts to ensure international security, address global social, economic, and climate challenges, and protect human rights and freedoms. The modern global challenges such as the climate crisis, food security threats, and growing inequality require the united efforts of the international community. In this turbulent period, I urge all states to continue supporting the UN in its core mission, ensuring peace and preventing contemporary risks and threats. Now more than ever, this support is crucial. I hope that under the leadership of Secretary General Mr. Antonio Guterres and with the active backing of member states, our organization will be able to effectively fulfill its functions and assist nations in addressing pressing global issues. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that is becoming increasingly unpredictable and complex with each passing year. We are facing unprecedented challenges, global climate catastrophe, economic inequality that divides nations and continents, and of course conflicts that shatter hopes for a peaceful future. At this time, we are witnessing global military expenditures increasing each year, while poor and vulnerable states lack the resources needed for their development and survival. I would like to draw your attention to two conflicting realities of our time. The first reality is the limitless spending on military needs. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, global military expenditures increased by 6.8% in 2023, reaching a record $2.5 trillion or 2.3% of global GDP. This is the highest figures in decades. Leading powers are allocating vast resources to building and developing armed forces, expanding arsenals, and creating new, more destructive weapons. Unfortunately, this is happening in a world where many countries and people still lack access to basic services such as water, healthcare, and education. It would be far better if the money spent on war, destruction, and death were redirected towards creation or addressing global challenges for the benefit of all humanity, helping countries combat climate change and prevent mass migration. Military expenditures and armed conflicts are having devastating impact on many countries, exacerbating poverty and inequality. Conflicts and armed clashes have led to the destruction of infrastructure, a decline in living standards, and mass migration, creating a vicious cycle of poverty and instability. While some countries are increasing their military budgets, many of those in need of assistance are losing the opportunity for a normal life. The second reality is the lack of progress in providing aid to poor and vulnerable states. We all know the economic inequality is on the rise. World leaders have been speaking for decades about the need of eradicating poverty, but they lack the will to follow through. Countries in Africa, South Asia, and Latin America continue to face chronic underfunding, a lack of support from the international community, and systemic economic crises that cannot be solved by individual states alone. The countries at the lowest economic levels are in dire need of investments in healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the fight against climate change. Yet amidst the rapid increase in military spending, assistance to these nations remains insufficient. Humanitarian aid and development assistance programs often face financial shortages, while these resources are being used for purchase of weapons and the conduct of military operations. Instead of decreasing, inequality between the nations is deepening. The world is now faced a critical choice. We can either choose to increase security through the expansion of armed forces, or we can pursue sustainable development aimed at eradicating poverty and supporting the most vulnerable. If the resources spent on military expenditures were instead invested in providing access to clean water, educating children in developing countries, combating hunger or addressing climate change, it would make a significant difference. To achieve progress, a joint effort between the wealthy and needy countries is essential. Firstly, developed nations must not only increase financial aid to those in need, but also focus on targeted infrastructure and social development projects. Secondly, the countries in need must actively participate in international sustainable development initiatives and commit to using resources effectively rather than scattering them without direction. Thirdly, it is crucial to transfer modern technologies from wealthy countries to those in need. This would enable struggling nations to develop their economies independently and reduce dependence on external aid. Today, we observe that geopolitical conflicts require not only increase in defense spending, but more importantly, the necessity of international cooperation for their resolution. If the global community can unite its efforts to fairly distribute resources, assist vulnerable countries, and address the root causes of armed conflicts, we can build a safer and more prosperous world. If we begin to invest in people instead of war, in education, healthcare, and sustainable development instead of weaponry, we can undoubtedly create a flourishing world. The time has come to rethink global security priorities. Security is not merely about powerful armies and weapons of mass destruction. True security is achieved through trust, equality, and the prosperity of nations. By investing in the future of poor countries, helping them to combat poverty, and providing opportunities for sustainable growth, we can create a more stable and secure world. In this context, I believe it is important and fair for the global community to pay greater attention to the issues of sustainable development in the global south and to advocate for themselves interests of first and foremost least developed countries, landlocked developed countries, and small island developing countries. Dear colleagues, one of the most dangerous challenges threatening the very existence of our planet is climate change, which is worsening daily and affecting virtually all countries and people around the world. The rapid melting of glaciers, an increase in natural disasters, and the reduction of water resources in mountainous ecosystems raise deep concerns. These negative consequences threaten the lives of local communities, contribute to rising poverty levels, deteriorate infrastructure, and cause significant harm to the economies of nations. Kyrgyzstan faces a triple challenge: the need for investment in development, the reduction of poverty, and adaptation to climate change in order to achieve carbon neutrality. Each of these areas requires specialized funding, particularly in the context of ensuring climate resilience for our country and vulnerable communities. We are determined to work together with our partners to achieve success. Kyrgyzstan proposes to strengthen and widely promote the Debt for Green Economy exchange mechanism. We believe this will help developing and less developed countries collectively combat climate change. Kyrgyzstan supports the view of the UN Secretary General on the need to reform the international financial architecture and reduce the debt burden of developing countries. We also propose a mechanism to replace external debt with projects aimed at climate and sustainable development, and we are working to establish a climate trust fund to finance environmental projects in mountainous regions. The Kyrgyz Republic pays special attention to climate issues in implementing its national policy and, based on the principles of green development, has set an ambitious goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Over 90% of our energy is produced primarily by hydropower plants, which are the main drivers towards achieving net zero emissions. Our country has extensive opportunities to integrate renewable energy sources into various sectors of economy, develop electric transport infrastructure, promote sustainable agriculture, and enhance ecotourism. We are actively taking measures to encourage the use of electric vehicles and improve the energy efficiency of buildings. I would like to provide just one example of our commitment to building a green future. Projects such as NEOM, Masdar City, Western Harbor, and Solar Valley that are focused on sustainable development are being implemented and successfully developed. The dreams of the people in these countries have come true and serve as an example for us as well. We have begun constructing the modern and innovative city of Asman on the shores of Lake Esekul. Next year, we will start building the city of Kemin. We are striving to create green cities that will serve as a model for other regions of our country, helping to preserve the natural environment for future generations. I firmly believe that this city will become an economic, trade, cultural, tourist hub, as well as center for innovation and new technologies. Central Asia is becoming an important region in terms of global security and the world economy. Kyrgyzstan, together with its neighboring states, continues to work on the sustainable development of the region. Together with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, we are building the Khambarata 1 hydropower station, which will meet the region's energy and water needs. We are also participating in the construction of China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway, which will enhance trade and transport cooperation and connect the east and west of the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of our world depends on the path we choose. We should not increase military spending, leading to further escalation of conflicts and disasters. Instead, we must direct our efforts towards building a just, safe, and prosperous world for all. Our choice today will determine what tomorrow will be like for our future generations. We all need to ease international tensions. The Kyrgyz Republic is ready to support the efforts of UN General Assembly and Security Council aimed at establishing a stable world order and achieving sustainable development goals, as well as to contribute to the international community's joint efforts to address global challenges and threats. At the same time, we propose our candidacy for non-permanent membership in the UN Security Council for the years 2027-2028. As a country that has never been elected to this country, Kyrgyz Republic hopes for your support in the elections scheduled to take place in New York City in June 2026. If elected, Kyrgyzstan will continue work towards enhancing the effectiveness and transparency of the Council's operations, as well as expanding its composition with consideration for balanced regional representation. The time has come to rectify the underrepresentation of African countries in Security Council and to eliminate historical injustice, such as the fact that Kyrgyzstan, including Kyrgyzstan, 60 member states have never been elected to the Security Council. At the future summit, UN member states reaffirmed the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals and the need for their full implementation. Kyrgyzstan remains committed to the Global 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and our achievements confirm our firm intention to achieve the goals, taking into consideration national priorities and financial capabilities. The UN Sustainable Development Goals are integrated into National Development Strategy of Kyrgyzstan until 2040, which creates opportunities for sustainable economic and social development, digitalization, entrepreneurship, as well as the introduction of innovative and environmentally friendly technologies for current and future generations. On July 22nd of this year, we adopted the law on protection of rights and funds of private entrepreneurs and foreign investors. This law defines the necessary measures for protecting investors in business activities. It also provides punitive measures against the relevant state officials for illegally and unjustly refusing state registration, illegally and unjustly denying the issuance of a license, unjustly and unlawfully restricting business activities, unjustly and unlawfully interfering with the activities of investors and private entrepreneurs. Severe penalties are imposed for the aforementioned violations. These include imprisonment for 2 to 5 years, confiscation of property, or large fines. Next year, our country will present its national voluntary review on the implementation of the SDGs. We are ready to share our experience, discuss the results achieved, and continue striving to be among the 30 countries in the world in implementing SDGs by 2030. As a mountainous country, Kyrgyzstan has drawn global attention to the challenges of sustainable development in mountainous regions since the 2000s. Through our initiative and with broad support from mountainous countries, the 5-year Action for Development of Mountain Regions program is being implemented for 2023 until 2027. I invite all nations to actively participate in this program. I also invite you to take part in the second Global Mountain Summit, Bishkek Plus 25 in 2027, where the results of the 5 years of Mountain Regions Initiative will be summarized. In addition, we are promoting the initiative to include a global dialogue on mountains and climate in the UN Annual Climate Change Conference agenda. Kyrgyzstan is actively working to protect the snow leopard, a symbol of long-term sustainable development in the region. In December 2023, the snow leopard was recognized as a national symbol of Kyrgyzstan. Together with 11 other countries within its habitat, we are working to protect this unique animal. In this regard, I am proud to announce that a resolution to declare International Snow Leopard Day will be introduced to the UN General Assembly, and I urge all nations to support this initiative. The inhabitants of mountainous regions face daily challenges such as water shortages, food insecurity, poverty, and lack of access to basic services. These countries should not be left alone with their problems. We call on the global community to take active steps to address these issues. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for the international community to build a new consensus based on trust and the interest of all nations. In conclusion, I would like to share the following words from Manas epic, which embodies the profound depth of friendship, unity, and solidarity among people. Let us unite our strength as one head from one shoulder and one hand from one sleeve. Where there is unity, there is prosperity. Thank you very much for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Kyrgyz Republic.